Okay, it is about that time for us to go ahead and kick off and start with our Kineo Totara office hours. Thank you so much for joining me today. A little bit about myself very quickly. My name is Taylor Craig, and I am actually the platform consultant. I need to change my title there. And my job entitles working with our existing clients to do additional training, any kind of consultation, as well as any types of sometimes requirements gatherings types of things, as well as working with brand new clients as we implement and onboard them. So I train as we go along, and as we're implementing, as our implementation team is working with you, then so am I to train on what the implementation team is doing. So that is where I come into play. I also do these office hours weekly just to give you an area to come and ask any questions that you may have. So let's talk a little bit about office hours. These are available only to our existing clients, at least the 45 minutes of open floor discussion is. We do post the 15 minutes of feature presentations. We do post those up to YouTube. We do have a channel out there if you'd like to go and review any of those past recordings. Also, in the email that you guys received, there should be a link to past recordings. It'll be a direct link to the channel where you can view all of the different recordings and sessions that we've done over the past, gosh, almost a year now. And then also, if you have an idea for a session, please go to this link. Pop in anything that you want to see about Totara. Anything. It can be activities, it can be resources, it can be administrative features, it can be just about anything inside the system. So go ahead, please submit those ideas. We're open to ideas. That would also be in the email that we sent out this morning as well. So let's talk about a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about restricting access. And first things first, we'll take a tour as a student or take a tour as a learner so that you can kind of get in there and see exactly what I'm talking about when I say I'm restricting access to certain things inside of a course. Now, if you've never seen these restriction settings before on your site, it is in fact a core feature to Totara. It's part of the system, but a lot of people maybe don't know it's there because it's not turned on by default. However, if you were implemented by Kineo, more than likely it is probably turned on because it may have been a requirement once upon a time during implementation, and so it may have been turned on there. But if you're not seeing it on your site, I will definitely show you where to go as an administrator and turn that on so that you can see it and have it available inside your courses. And then also we'll talk a little bit quickly about how you set it up, and that way you're just kind of familiar with it and at least get your feet wet a little bit as far as the wonderful world of restricting access and conditional activities are concerned. So enough of this boring stuff. Let's go ahead and jump into the system. So I am in my demo site. I am in here as a learner. My name is Ginger Gilmore in here. And I've got two different courses. So you've probably seen this personalized learning example course in another session that we talked about, where we talked about using conditional access and restrict access to kind of personalize how people flow through a course. That's one of our older office hours sessions. I recommend that you go take a chance and take a look at that one. But just to kind of get you a good feel for how this all works, let's see it as a learner. So what we've done in this situation, we've actually restricted access by topic. So there's actually two more topics below this big area here that's giving me instructions, but I can't see it as a learner until I do what it tells me to do. So I'm going to check this box. I'm going to mark this as complete. And this is going to reveal to me the next topic in the course. It's a pretty immediate reaction, so it's not like it's something that you have to wait on. I know in old versions of Moodle, back when all of this was brand new, sometimes you had to wait on some scripts to run in the background. Not anymore. It's pretty much immediate. And then also you have other restriction settings. So I can say that they can't see the rest of whatever's in this topic, or maybe the next topic, or maybe a completion certificate, that they can't see it until maybe they pass this quiz. So there's probably more things inside of this course. So let's just cruise through this quiz pretty quick. Let's see how smart I am. We're going to start this attempt. And surely I can get this right because I've only taken this quiz about 1,100 times. Okay, let's see. And I am not even reading the questions. That's how many times I've taken this. Watch, and I'm gonna fail it. That'll be my luck. Alrighty. I think there's only 4 questions. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna submit all and finish, submit all and finish, submit all and finish. We're done. Okay, so we got 100. I'm going to go back into the course. I clicked on this up here, so that's where it took me. And so what it gave me then is it gave me another page here that's telling me, great job, you know the Totara basics. So I can click on this, and it's giving me a tour of kind of what's coming next inside the course. So now we're going to learn about dynamic audiences. That's going to be the next phase in this course. We can return back out to the course. And that's going to open up our next portion of the training. So this is restricting by topic. Let's take a quick peek at one more course where we're restricting by activity. So in this Totara Course Basics course, again, probably something you've also seen in other sessions. You'll notice in this one we have here, we're actually seeing everything that's restricted to me as a learner. So I can't access that book, I can't access that SCORM package, I can't do anything. And it's also telling me why I can't do anything. So it's letting me know that I can't access it until Totara Basic Structure First is marked complete. So when I check that box, we could have also done that on a view. Different things have different restrictions and completion criteria. That's going to make this book available. So basically, it's kind of a chaining effect here, moving through, and then as I move through and complete these and match the criteria that is required in order to complete that, it's going to open up and make the next portion available to me. So it'll just kind of keep going. So there's lots of things that you can do, and we're going to take a quick peek now as an administrator as far as what some of those settings are, what you can restrict based upon, and then how to turn this on your site. So I'm going to log out as this learner here, and I'm going to pop back in as myself. Okay, so first things first, when you're in as an administrator, if you're not sure if it's turned on, good place to go and look is going to be underneath your site administration and underneath advanced features. You're going to scroll down and you're going to look for enable conditional access. If you'll notice, the default for this is no. I've got it checked, so that means I've turned it on my site. So now I've flipped the default from no to yes. Okay, so I am in fact using it on my site. Once you've made that change, you're going to turn it on. You also want to make sure your completion tracking is turned on, because restrict access, your conditional access, which also we call restrict access a lot of times, that is working in complete and total tandem with completion tracking. You have to tell your system what makes something complete in order to restrict to something else, okay? So make sure your settings are set there. The next location to check and adjust your settings is going to be inside of the course. So if we go into, we'll just go into this new employee onboarding course here. Don't think I have, nope, I do have stuff in there. We'll just go into our Course Basics course and build a little more in there. The next place to check if it's turned on is going to be inside the course settings. So that's under Administration, Course Administration, Edit Settings. And you want to scroll all the way to the bottom, just about. It's in here somewhere. There it is, completion tracking. So you're going to open that section of your settings for your courses, and if you have it turned on, you should see that you have the ability to enable completion tracking. Turn that on, and you should be good to go at that point. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to save changes. Then you're going to come in here into your course, you're going to turn your editing on, and you can begin to build. So one thing to note is, first and foremost, you have to have something that has some type of completion set on it before you can restrict access to anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a label, kind of like what we saw in that other course. That's what we had in there. We provided some instructions and we said, hey, everything else inside this course is restricted until you do this. So the first thing you're going to pay attention to is your activity completion setting. We're not going to take a look at this restrict access setting just yet because we need something else to mark as complete. We need something for it to trigger off of. So we're going to come in here. Students can manually mark it as complete because this is a label, so that's going to be the only completion option that we have. Okay, so learners will see this checkbox here. Next, we can add in any kind of activity resource. We could add another label for that matter if we wanted to. But what I'm going to do is I am just going to throw in a quick assignment here. You could add in anything. Guys, one thing to be aware of, everything has kind of some different completion criteria around it. We've talked about that, I believe, in previous sessions. So I'm just going to call this assignment example. We're not really concerned about any of the other settings in this assignment at this point. We're more so concerned about paying attention to our restrict access settings. So inside of your restrict access settings, if you're not seeing these, again, you need to go and turn those on at the system administration level. And at the system level, they're called conditional access. So that can be a little confusing because they don't have the same name, but that's what's going to turn this on. So you'll see here you have an eyeball. This eyeball is often overlooked, and a lot of times people don't see it, and they don't realize exactly what it does. If the eyeball is open and completely visible, what that means is that it's going to show the learner the restrictions. So in the second example we looked at as the learner, we were able to see why I couldn't access something. It showed me you have to complete something else before you can access this. Okay, so if you have the eyeball open like this, that's what it's going to do. If you would like it to look more like the first example and be completely hidden and them not even know it's there, you want to click on that eye. What it's going to do, it's going to put a slash through it. Depending on your theme, it may be a slash. I may actually close. That's going to be a thematic thing as far as how that eyeball looks. But if it's closed, has a slash through it, anything like that, what it means is the learner's not even going to know this activity is inside of this course until they meet the completion criteria of the thing above it, or whatever you set your completion criteria upon. Now you've got some options here. You have that they must complete it or that they must not complete it. Okay, there are different situations where you want people to see certain things if they haven't completed something else. Okay, and then when they do complete it, it goes away. Okay, so think of that when you're using this. You also have the ability to say match any or all of the following criteria. So just remember that all and any, those rules types, we see that a lot in different places across Totara, but all means they got to meet all of it. Any means they need to meet some of the criteria. So we're going to go ahead with all. We're going to add a restriction. So here are all of the different restrictions that you can set based on different things in the system. So you have activity completion. This is going to be the example we were taking a look at really actually in both of the examples that we looked at today. So in both cases they had to complete some type of activity. So whether that was checking off the box on the label or completing that quiz like we did and then it releases the rest, that's what activity completion is doing. Now, you also have, based on a date, prevent access until or from a specified date or time. So you can actually prevent or add a restriction based on a date, and you can set that in there as well. I'm going to click off of that. That wasn't the one we wanted to do. You can also do this off of a particular grade. So keep in mind that if you are choosing the grade restriction option, you need to make sure that whatever it is that you're restricting upon based on a grade, so that other activity that needs a grade, you need to make sure that that other activity does in fact report a grade. Okay, so keep that in mind also. You can do this based on a group, so only certain people belonging to certain groups. Now, guys, I want to make you aware as far as groups and groupings are concerned, this is completely different than audiences. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit different than your usual Totara audiences that you're used to. You can also do this based on user profile fields, and then you can also do a restriction set. So a restriction set is going to allow you to do it based on a couple of different rules. Okay, so you've got lots of different options. It can get a little confusing. So one thing to note when you're doing these types of restrictions, first thing I like to always say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay, so you have the ability to set all of these restrictions if you would like to. But you don't want to create learner frustration. You want to allow those learners to be able to continue through that learning in an effective, quick manner. So you don't want to create frustration there. The next thing that I like to give a disclaimer on is test for remain consistent. So don't have one thing being on activity completion, one thing being on grade, one thing being on user profile. And if you do have multiple different types, kind of keep some consistency going there. Because again, learner frustration. You want to be aware of the learner. That's who you are creating this content for. And then finally, you want to make sure that you're not restricting them because of you. So, for example, the grade option. A lot of times people love to restrict based on a grade. However, they may have, let's say, an essay question inside of a quiz. And the learner can't actually pass that quiz until an instructor or someone comes in and actually grades that quiz. So if you're going to set restrictions based on grades, make sure that you as an instructor, make sure you're not hindering progress throughout this course. Okay? Typically the one that is most commonly used is going to be your activity completion option. What's going to happen is that you're going to see everything inside of the course that perhaps has an activity completion criteria setting on it. Now, I'm seeing everything inside of the course, but I'm in the first topic, right, guys? So we want to make sure that we're not causing our learner to have to complete an activity that comes after the activity we're currently working on. Okay, so you want to make sure you're still going in chronological order as well. That's another thing to be aware of. So here's that label that we put in. Instructions to release rest of course might go here. Must be marked complete. Now you do have some options here. You have must be marked complete, must not be marked complete. So you've got that option as well. You also have pass or fail grade. So passing and fail grades, if you do use a pass or fail grade, your pass grades need to be set inside of the grade book. So that's an area where that passing grade needs to be set. That way the system knows what a grade to pass is. Okay, so just keep those types of things in mind as well. So we're going to say just must be marked complete because a label can't have a grade, right? So we don't want to hinder them because we're setting our rules wrong. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to save and return to the course. So now what we're seeing is that this assignment is not going to be available until the learner checks the box on this. Now, another example that we saw was restriction on a per topic basis. So if we go into the next topic inside of this course, I just want to show you the other location where restrictions are available because it can be a little tedious to put a restriction on every single activity and resource inside of the course. So to do this on a topic basis, you can go into the area where you edit the topic itself. Okay, so this one's saying edit summary, and again, this is a theme thing. You may not have a gear icon, you may have a pencil icon, but it's always going to, when you mouse over it, it should say edit summary. So that's going to be the area where you're going to want to go. You're familiar probably with your section name, your summaries, that type of stuff, but you do have the same restrict access option inside of a topic. So I wanted to make you guys aware of that as well. And say we do this restriction based on activity completion, you'll notice that we have all of our activities in the course that have completion on them as something that can trigger the release or the opening of this particular topic. Okay, so keep that in mind when you are using restrict access. Make sure you're being consistent. Make sure you're not hindering your learners because of you, and enjoy it. Have fun with it. It makes your courses more dynamic and more interactive. We encourage you to definitely use it. My final thought here is always test it. It's always a good idea to have logged in as a real live learner, so have a test learner on the system. Log in as that learner step all the way through your course. Make sure that you're not locking your learners out of anything or stopping them from doing anything. So I hope that you all have a fantastic day, and please join us again next week. I'm going to turn the floor over to you for questions. Thanks so much.